Hey there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So this video is going to be a fun one. We're going to be talking about the top 10 best films to make over $1 billion at the box office worldwide. So I wonder what films are going to be on this list. I have no idea. I haven't read this yet. I'm going to be just as surprised as you guys, but we're looking at the top 10 best films to make over $1 billion. Obviously, there's films that have made over $1 billion, but they're considered not very good by the critics, by the audiences, but they still made over $1 billion. But instead of looking at those, we're going to be looking at the best received, the well kind of critic received as well as audience received, top 10 movies that made over $1 billion. So let's get into this list and let's check out which top 10 films made this list. So I just want to start off with this before we get into the list. So, if unadjusted for inflation, 55 films have crossed the 1 billion threshold at the worldwide box office. When you put this into perspective, right? So we talk about films, oh, you know, this movie should make $1 billion, this movie should make $1 billion, and we talk about it as if it's a normal thing, when it's absolutely not. You think of the entire history of Hollywood now, right? What, movies are being made in Hollywood now for what, 100 years? Maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. I'm not exactly sure on how long the history of Hollywood has been, but let's just say 100 years just for the sake of this video. And you think thousands and thousands and thousands of Hollywood movies get made every single year. Movies get made, right? Only 55 of those movies have crossed the $1 billion mark. That goes to show you just how small this list is compared to the amount of films that actually get made on a yearly basis. So making $1 billion is no easy feat. But we forget that sometimes and we talk about it as if it's a normal thing when it's not. But anyway, let's get into this list. So first of all on the list, Avengers Endgame in 2019, it made $2.7 billion. That number is just, inconceivable amount of money, nearly $3 billion. So all four Avenger movies have cleared $1 billion at the worldwide box office, and it is essentially declares choice, and it is essentially a dealer's choice which of them is the best. Sorry, I read that wrong. So all four Avengers movies have cleared $1 billion at the worldwide box office, and it is essentially a dealer's choice which of them is the best. That said, the chances of Avengers Age of Ultron being the pick is slim. Yeah, I mean, universally, Age of Ultron is considered the worst Avengers movie. I still enjoy it, but it's still considered the worst one. So, but as far as we feels like a cinematic achievement, it's certainly 2019 Avengers Endgame, and not just because it made an absurd amount of money, both stateside and abroad. It's a film that manages to pack almost every thread from multiple franchises, yet never feels overstuffed. Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible movie. 2.8 billion nearly at the box office. Moving on to the next one, Black Panther 2018, that made 1.3 billion. Black Panther is the second and final MCU movie to be featured on this list, and it isn't just one of the best movies of its larger cinematic universe, it's the most important, hands down. The fact that it's generally effective and poignant work is no surprise. Black Panther opened strong and then benefited from a phenomenal repeat business across the globe. I had no expectations of Black Panther making nearly 1.4 billion. That's crazy. So far we've got Avengers Endgame at 2.7 billion, Black Panther at 1.3. So moving on to this, The Dark Knight. In the conversation for one of the best comic book movies ever made, potentially in the top 5 at least, if not the best comic book movie ever made. That's the opinion of a lot of people out there. I mean, people could fight in the street over that for a long time. But anyway, The Dark Knight 2008 made $1 billion. So, if there was ever a massive leap in audience interest from the first film to the second, it's with Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. That put into context, 2005's Batman Begins generated $207 million domestically and a further $1.685 million overseas. 3 years later, The Dark Knight made almost over $535 million from domestic screens alone. So it more than doubled from that first Batman movie in 2005 to The Dark Knight, the second movie in the trilogy. It more than doubled its domestic box office revenue, which is insane. But yeah, I mean, The Dark Knight, like I say, one of the best comic book movies ever made, if not the best comic book movie ever made. That's up for discussion. Like I say, people are going to fight amongst themselves over that, but it's not hyperbole to say, you know, potentially the best comic book movie ever made. Moving on to this, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That made $1 billion. Okay. Surprisingly enough, only 2 installments in the 7-film Harry Potter franchise crossed $1 billion. At first, the first and the last, sorry. In the case of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, it was an especially considerable accomplishment. It was the first and the last movie made $1 billion. But to be honest, those other movies didn't need to make $1 billion. I mean, the average amount of revenue from all the movies, and that's what the executives are looking at Warner Brothers, the average amount that each movie makes, rather than looking at the standalone amount. And this franchise made mountains of money for Warner Brothers. So yeah, crazy. But the first movie, 1 billion, and the Sorcerer's Stone, absolutely incredible Harry Potter movie through and through. Moving on to this, one of the best movies in cinematic history, Jurassic Park. I'm still puzzled over how they made the CGI look so good in that movie. Came out in 1993. That made 1.1 billion. The ultimate adventure film, Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, is as thrilling 30 years later as it was back in the 90s. The top grossing movie of its receptive year, made the most of its status as a film that must be seen on the big screen. It's no wonder the film has been re-released multiple times. Yeah, I still just can't get over it. Like, how does a film from 1993 look that good? But it made 1.1 billion, so that's great. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, that made 1.1 billion. So, as an engrossing and moving as a fantasy film or film of any genre can get, Peter Jackson's magnum opus, The Lord of the Rings Return of the King, retained the goodwill and financially viable gained by the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. In terms of critical reception, it was also the only installment of the trilogy to nab an Oscar for Best Picture. But I mean, we can't really say anything about Lord of the Rings, which hasn't already been said. It's an absolute masterpiece of filmmaking. One of the most incredible when it comes to script, when it comes to narrative, when it comes to characters, when it comes to action, when it comes to fans, like literally everything. It's the pinnacle of filmmaking across all disciplines. Characters, costume, makeup, design, sound, like everything, just across the board. The pinnacle of filmmaking. That's exactly what this movie is. And it made 1.1 billion, so absolutely incredible. So moving on to this, James Bond, Skyfall, 2012, 1.1 billion. For the most part, there's a cap to the audience interest in Bond franchise. When one is talked about as a revelation for the IP, they can put another 007 installments grosses to shame. That was the case with Skyfall. So yeah, Skyfall made 1.1 billion, I should say. To be honest, I had no idea that it made that amount of money. I need to go back and watch the Daniel Craig James Bond movie. I fell off the James Bond franchise a long time ago, and I need to get back on board with it because it's a great franchise. But yeah, I mean, Skyfall, 2012, 1.1 billion. Fantastic. Moving on to this, Top Gun Maverick, 1.4 billion, came out in 2022. In the modern age of legacy sequels, there are winners and losers. For instance, Twisters was a critical and commercial winner. Zoolander 2, a critical and commercial loser. Then there was Top Gun Maverick, which outside of Star Wars The Force Awakens stands as the most successful legacy follow-up to date. I mean, how many years was there between the first Top Gun and the second one? Was it like 26 years or something? Something ridiculous like that. But yeah, nearly made $1.5 billion. Absolutely incredible. And I'm not sure if they're moving on more Top Gun movies. I think I heard rumors about that. But after making that amount of money at the box office, absolutely they're going to make more Top Gun movies in the near future. Okay, up next, Toy Story 3 from 2010. That made $1 billion. Toy Story is an absolute money machine. Toy Story is just one of those incredible animated franchises. The original Toy Story was so good it seemed a tall order to beat it in quality department. But then Toy Story 3 came along, a movie that was able to bring adults in the audience to tears just as well, if not better than the kids sitting next to them. Yeah, I mean, is it that scene where they're in the furnace? The toys are in the furnace and they're about to be burned alive. Like one of the saddest scenes in the Toy Story franchise. But yeah, Toy Story 3 2010 made made 1 billion, sorry. So moving on to this, Zootopia, that made $1 billion as well. No one expected Zootopia to cross $1 billion. It was a Disney movie with talking animals, so naturally expectations weren't at the bottom of the barrel, but the film's performance undoubtedly surprised many people, with a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, I mean, Zootopia, man. That was something that no one ever expected. This kind of animal talking, a little bit generic looking, kind of animated animal talking type of movie that's been done to death. It didn't really look to stand out. It didn't really look like it would be anything kind of significantly different from anything we've seen from animated features before. But the fact that it came out and just stole the box office and made over $1 billion, I mean, it's insane. And we know they're moving forward on a Zootopia 2. So that's kind of where we are, guys. So let's just go through this list again. So Zootopia 2016, $1 billion. Toy Story 3 2010, $1 billion. Top Gun Maverick 2022, $1.4 billion. Skyfall at $1.1 billion. Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, 2003, that made 1.1 billion. Jurassic Park from 1993, 1.1 billion. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, 2001. That movie came out in 2001. I'm beginning to feel old. That made 1 billion. The Dark Knight, potentially the best comic book movie ever. That made $1 billion. Black Panther 2018 made 1.3. And then we finish off with Avengers Endgame at $2.7 billion. That amount of money is inconceivable. If that was put in physical cash in front of you, I have no idea how big that stack of cash would even look. But yeah, so that's the top 10 movies to make over $1 billion at the global box office. Pretty incredible films there, guys. Which of those films is your favorite? Which one stood out to you? Which one would you pick as your favorite out of that list there of those $10 billion films? I'd love to know, guys. Jump into the comment section, leave your thoughts, comments, and opinions down there below on this information we've covered in this video. As always, thank you so much for being here. Be sure to hit that like and become a subscriber of the channel if you haven't already. It goes a long way to supporting the content, so I'd really, really appreciate that. And as always, I will see you in the next video.